Hey, welcome to our podcast. I'm Ryan.
I'm Gina.
And this is it.
Yeah. So we have a question, or actually before we even get started, we just want to talk to you a little bit about, there's going to be some honest conversations here, and this is for us just to become really real with you guys and very vulnerable. So I hope you're in for the ride, and I hope this is going to benefit you wherever you're at, because we understand that even though this is our story,
everybody's in different places.
Yes,
and everybody's
absolutely.
in different stages of life and going through different things.
Yeah. So our question is, are you ready to get real with where you're at? And awesome, I'm wearing a Get Real shirt. Anyway, we're serious about this question. Are you ready to get real with where you're at in your life? Because really that's the only way we have found healing in our marriage and as being parents and everything we've gone through. Our finances and really hitting rock bottom, but picking ourselves back up again. And so it's in the most real and most vulnerable moments where healing lies. And it's in the darkest moments where light shines through.
Yeah. And I think that with that, we talked about being that real and honest.
Yeah.
But I think that we're ready to
Yeah.
kind of dive into it.
And if you're not ready, if you're just like, you know what, I could care less to ever be real in my life, I don't want to be honest, then these videos are not for you. So just move right along, find something else that's going to suit you with wherever you're at. But our desire and our ultimate goal here is that people become whole and find healing.
The number one thing that we believe for becoming a healthy individual is to know where you're at, and there's a starting point. And so we're going to be kind of talking today about where our starting point is. And we were talking about this just a minute ago before we got on camera, is that just like whenever you're driving around, you have your navigation out, you open up Google Maps and you're like, I want to go to this place. Well, if Google Maps doesn't know where you're at, it can't send you to that place that you want to go. And so the same is true with your life. You may have an image or a picture or a vision of where you want to be in your life, and a lot of us do. A lot of us have goals and aspirations. I know from a kid, you always have these goals and aspirations and dreams of what you want to become or who you want to be someday. And so it's not for a lack of having a desire to be something better than what you are, but the key ingredient to starting on that journey is knowing where you're at.
I'm just going to bring this up.
Go for it.
This is just how I'm operating right now. So the three topics are that we want to hit on is learning how to trust the voice inside. You can't know where you're going until you know where you're at.
Yes, 100%.
Which is so huge.
Correct.
And become aware, honest, and stop lying to yourself.
Yes, those are huge.
Yeah.
Those are some bombshells that got dropped on us a few years ago, that we came to this realization that we cannot, move forward with our life. We can't get better if we don't know where we're at. What was the first one again? How did you word that?
Learning how to trust the voice inside.
Learning how to trust the voice inside. Super important to know that we all have this voice on the inside of us. Some people call it different things. We believe that it's the Holy Spirit just speaking to you, that the God of this universe is big enough to, but he's big enough to have created all of us and all the amazing things that life has to offer, but he's also personable enough to speak to each and every one of us, and that he's...
and he wants to go to the deep, dark places with you.
Yes. And he's always there with you.
He already knows.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question for you.
Yes.
So when did this become real for you? When you became so honest with yourself and you stopped lying and you were ready to go to those hard places?
Yeah. So this was a really hard one for me, because it happened about 4 years ago. After some of you watching may not know, but we had lost a little baby girl. We have two beautiful girls now, and at that time they were 5 and 3. And Gina was pregnant, and she was 6.5 months long, and with our third baby girl and had a stillborn. And so that rocked our world. That was something that we had never experienced that much loss up to that point in our lives, and it really crushed us, and it hurt. It just hurt.
It was the most painful.
It was the most painful,
real raw moment of our life.
And so after several months after that, that was in 2014, and late 2014, I had been struggling, and I had dealt with pornography since I was a kid. And it came out again. It had come out in our marriage 2 times before that, and it came out a third time, and I was struggling with it again for the third time in my marriage, and I was so torn up about it. It was something that all of us deal with vices and different things, but to be dealing with that in a marriage and knowing that it wasn't something that I wanted to be addicted to, it wasn't something I wanted to struggle with. None of us want to struggle really with anything that's a vice in our life. But having to really come to grips with, I'm dealing with something, and I've had to deal with it since I was a young man.
Yeah.
Whenever I was about 9 years old, it was introduced to me by a friend's older brother, and then there were events that happened, over the next few years that happened that no kid should ever have to be exposed to. But and those are things that I had never talked to anybody about. I had never been real.
Stripped away your innocence, really.
Yeah. I mean, it stripped away that innocence that a kid has, and so it was something that was very painful for me to. I just had suppressed it. Like, right. I had never told anybody, never told my parents, never told friends, just never told anybody, and
about that incident, not porn.
Right. About that instance, about the things that were going on,
right.
With the older brother. So going through that, the friend's older brother, but going through that that time in our marriage after we had lost Annabelle and pornography came back up in my life again, I knew that, like, I was about to lose everything. I was about to lose my wife, my kids, and I was just fed up with it. I was tired of dealing with it, and it was something that I had been trying to conquer for 18 years of my life, so up to that point in my life, I was 30 years old. I'd been dealing with this for such a long time, that I was tired of it, and I knew I needed help. And so finally we decided, I need to get help. So I reached out to a friend of mine and that counseled with us, and went in and talked to him. And it was the very first time in that counseling session that I actually shared what had happened to me at a young age, and that bringing that memory back up, or remembering kind of where it started, really started the healing for me. So where I knew where I was, or I knew that I needed help, and then it was a matter of going, when did this enter my life? When had this struggle started to enter into my life?
There's a root to everything.
Yeah, and where was that root at? And once we got to the root, and it was something you didn't even know about, and even whenever you heard it put a lot of perspective for you with what I was dealing with, and it put a lot of perspective for myself where I'd come from and what I had been dealing with for so long. So once I dealt with that root issue, it was a lot easier to move past it. It wasn't easy, but it was easier to start realizing where the attacks were coming from, what root, where it came from, and what was happening. Yeah, what to
what
uproot.
To identify and what to uproot.
And once I started realizing that, there were trigger points, and there were things that would bring it up. And before, I used to think about when I was triggered in those moments, that it felt like a beast that was just attached to me. It felt like massive beast with, like a dragon type beast with its talons just like sunk into me, and that I couldn't, there was no escape, and that I had nowhere to go, and that I would just pretty much had to just do whatever that struggle told me I had to do. And once I realized that I was in charge of that struggle, of that vice, of that addiction, that it was no longer in charge, I was not chained to it, and I was able to separate that, that it was not me, that was a sin, that was something else, that was not who I truly was. And once I was able to make that separation and realize that I don't have to be subject to this, that it is subject to me, and I have power over it, and that I can rule over it. That mindset shift just played a massive part in me moving forward to where now going, I don't have to be, chained to this anymore. It's not, doesn't have any power over me.
Yeah.
And even though it's not like, oh, I'm free, because that's what I always thought.
Yeah.
I always thought that if I could just beat this and never have to deal with this again. And I mean, how many of us know that that's not the issue? We deal with things. And just because you win a battle today doesn't mean that the enemy's not going to throw something at you. It doesn't mean that life's not going to throw that crazy shit at you constantly. It's going to continue to come. The attacks are still going to come. So I realized in those moments, and another thing that really helped me was realizing that the struggle and the temptations weren't just going to poof, magically evaporate.
Yeah.
That
for so long, I mean, both of us grew up with a mindset that very religious and very much like where these things were not talked about. So we had zero tools to grab onto. We had zero resources other than knowing, oh, just don't go there.
Yeah, don't do that.
Just don't do that.
Okay.
And everything will be fine. But you've already been there.
If you've already been there, your mind's gone there, you've actually done the action, done the deed, whatever it may be, and you've gone through that, like, now what? Now you feel, well, for me, there was no safe place.
Yeah.
There was no safe place to talk to anybody to say, hey, this is what I've dealt with. This is where, these are the struggles I'm dealing with. And to not be judged, or not feel dirty, not to feel condemned, not to feel like my life was over. That, oh, you messed up. God can't use you anymore. Like, God's A plan is out the window for you. And that's such a bullshit mentality. And realizing that if I would have had a safe place, I could have dealt with this a lot longer or a long time ago. Wasn't until, and then, being in church, you just feel like, because for me, I've always had that perception like, oh, you're just this church kid and you're perfect. And Ryan's just this model, this model for Christendom that, this perfect little young man that, does no wrong. And that was the furthest thing from the truth. I was dealing with something inside that was eating me alive. And then growing up, you become a pastor. I became a pastor. And so, of course, pastors are not supposed to deal with that. And no pastors out there ever deal with this stuff. And that's a loaded garbage as well. Yeah. Because they do. I mean, not just this, but so many other things, whether it's drugs or alcohol or, sex, whatever it is. Like, everybody deals with something. And so, but again, I was told like, oh, you'll deal with these things. But it was like, just don't do them. It was almost like, just push it down and suppress it. And I really have to get to this point of learning how to not just try to suppress it, but really, like, not embrace it in such a way, but embrace the realization,
really
take ownership that this is something I deal with.
Responsibility, just own where you're at, what we're talking about. Just become real with where you're at. And to be honest, I didn't know how to deal with this as a wife. My God, the first time it was just like, wait, what? Like, the only information I knew is that, one, it was either my fault, I wasn't performing well enough in the bedroom, or two, it was people just get divorced over this. That was the only example I saw in my environment was, I guess, we're either, one, going to get a divorce, or I just have to keep performing at such a level where I just don't think I'm going to ever fulfill you. Right. And so it was a lack of self-esteem on my end, and then there was a lack of intimacy, and then there was a lack of, so much of our marriage was stripped away from just our perceptions and not allowing each other to go to these hard places or not knowing how. Yeah. And so, like, for me, it was, okay, I had known this for years. So then when we lost Annabelle, I was in the hospital room. I held death in my arms. It's traumatic to just sit there and hold, there's no way to go around it. Like, just a baby who's not breathing. And you are now faced with death. And my biggest struggle growing up was suicide. I had struggled with suicidal thoughts for years. And then here I'm holding death in my arms, but the thing that I saw was her living a new life. And it was such a crazy thing for me because I saw our marriage ending in death. Mm-hmm. I saw me ending in death. And I felt this, even though I held death, I also saw life beyond her. So it's just such a crazy situation for me where I was like, the life I see her living is what I want.
Yeah.
I want to feel the life she's experiencing. Mm-hmm. And then I started the story of, well, I guess the only way to do that is just to kill myself.
Yeah.
And to exit this life and move on to the next.
Right.
And so the story was, I now have a purpose to die. And the people that here know me enough. The people I was supposed to meet, I have already met. Mm-hmm. And that lie started to just roll around, and then things got so dark. And finally, when I became honest with where I was in my life, you were that one that said, we need to get you help. And we went to a grieving class together in this grieving support class that the hospital offered. And it was within that grieving class, the lady as leading the group mm-hmm. was asked, is there a wrong or right way to grieve? And I was like, yes, there is. And I said, the wrong way is to commit suicide. The wrong way is to get a divorce. The wrong way is to stop living. And she just said, can I ask a question? Has everybody in this room thought those things, what Gina just said? And everybody in that room said, I've dealt with suicidal thoughts. I've either wanted to get a divorce or I am divorced because of this. And I holy cow, I sat back in my chair, and even though I wasn't honest in that moment, it gave me this, my eyes were open to say, maybe this isn't so foreign. Maybe these thoughts aren't so foreign anymore. Yeah. And maybe for the first time, I'm not alone in my darkness. Maybe for the first time, other people too, I heard from, they're also struggling with suicidal thoughts, or they've either gotten a divorce or they want to. Right. And it was such a turning point in my life. And after that moment, it took a couple weeks, but I finally was honest, and it was handled well by you, but not very much within our community. No. And our community really did not know how to handle these moments. So we really had to make some hard decisions on, okay, if people aren't going to understand, I know I still need help, mm-hmm. and we need to go out and find that. And so we both had to find it. And even when we found help, it just took time for us to get comfortable in working this out together. Right. And I think that's the biggest thing, is this is where we learned we each have an individual struggle that we're carrying. Mm-hmm. And that's where Ryan's struggle was very real. Mm-hmm. My struggle was very real. But at the same time, we both had to respect each other's struggle. Yeah. And it was no longer this blame game of, well, you went through pornography, so therefore I'm divorcing you, or that's why I want to commit suicide. No, this has been a part of my life for a really long time, and I'm ready to face it.
Yeah, and I think what you said is really good, and it's important for everybody else to understand that you're not fighting here. Mm-hmm. And when you can separate the battles and go, hey, like divorce and suicide, divorce, and those sort of things. We'll get into more of that in other videos. But for me to just go, that's not my wife. Like, I know her. I know that she loves me. I know that she loves our children. I know that she loves life. Just, she's struggling with this right now. The thoughts are real. And not discounting the thoughts, but just realizing, like, those are real. And we're going to take care of those thoughts. And we're going to take care of it. And it's not going to be today. Oh, it's going to be a process. And for her to look at me and go, hey, this struggle that you're having, it is real. Right. And it can really affect, in both struggles, both vices can tear our marriage apart. They can tear our lives apart. But for her to look at me and go, hey, I'm separating your struggle. It is no longer, it's not you. and looking at it in that light, and for me to do the same for her, really allowed us to take those things that we were both dealing with in the same time frame and just go, how are we going to get healthier? What do we need? And for us, it was reaching out and getting help. And so wherever you may be, like, we had no money. It wasn't this professional help that we're getting. It felt like professional help. The friends that we went to were absolutely amazing.
What we needed.
And so it could be that friend. It could be somebody, a counselor. Maybe it's a counselor at a church or a counselor that you know. Or
And it was, for us, it was like, the whole no money thing. But we knew people that were so solid in these areas. Not solid, like there's no picture perfect marriage at all. And if people are in your sphere or in your environment that claim to have their shit together, they're not who you need to go talk to, because that's not for reals. And so even our friends that we met with, they had been teaching marriage classes for years, and we were taking their marriage classes, and we just called them. We said, look, we have no money, but we're in this desperate space, and will you just take some time to help us walk through this? And we did, and it was one-on-one counseling. And
I think one of the biggest things, and going back to the first thing about listen to the voice inside, is that the one thing they did for us was, it wasn't like they had all this information. And
there was no step-by-step program.
No,
read
it
this
wasn't.
book and you're going to find a cure.
It was literally, they just asked some simple questions and gave us the opportunity and the atmosphere to just listen to the voice inside. And then, what is that voice saying? What is it telling you? Where are you at? What's going on? And that's whenever being open and real. Because that was the time whenever I was first honest with myself, with you, with other people, and that listening to the voice, being honest with myself, that began this journey, and then it's just progressed over the last couple of years, getting into wake up warrior stuff that I've been listening to for the last 2 or 3 years, and realizing that you have to be honest with yourself. If you can't be honest with yourself, then what's the point? And if you can't be honest with others, the people that you love, your spouse, your friends, whoever it is, if you can't be honest with them, like there's 0 point, like, to this life, like to living a facade, like it's so taxing. And here's the other thing, life is painful. Do not ever think that life is just going to be a bed of roses and it's just going to be amazing. Like, our marriage today, it has taken a lot of work, and we both know that it will take a lot of work from this moment forward to continue to grow and continue to get better. So realizing that life is going to be painful, but it's going to either be painful because you're working towards being better and healthier, just like working out, or it's going to be painful because your life is going to be a shit show and it's going to continue to fall apart. And what do you want? What pain would you rather have? Would you rather have the pain of your life falling apart and everything, just like, if you don't go to the gym, you get fat and lazy, trust me, I'm right here. I need to lose about 10 or 15 pounds. So I know, like, it's painful for me to be where I'm at because I've never been here before. So that is something I have to work on. I'm honest about that. I know where I'm at. I know it's something I have to work on and continue to improve upon. So are you going to just sit there and continue to get fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter and have a lot of health issues and pain? Or are you going to take that pain and have pain in your life of getting up a little bit earlier, going to the gym, working out? It's going to be painful. You're going to sweat, but then having the body that you want, or having a healthy body. Okay. And so there's those two pains.
And if you are in those painful, like, losing a child was the most painful, probably will always be the most painful thing we would ever gone through. But that happened, and within that situation came a new life for us. And so if you are already in the space of the most painful, you're at the most painful part of your life, that's okay. Invite the pain in, feel. When we lost Annabelle, we had never felt those emotions before.
No.
We had never felt, it was an uncontrollable amount, like we couldn't control it.
No.
And so in those darkest of moments, you can't control yourself anymore. And I think that if you're there, you are so right where you need to be. I actually get excited now when people are in the darkest times, I'm not sitting here like, yay, I'm so excited for you. Like,
No, but
no,
we
my
know
heart
what comes from that.
It's
okay.
Yes.
We're okay with those times. And we're okay, like, if we are in an argument, when there's something that we're struggling with together.
There's no more trying to be perfect or trying to pretend to be perfect.
Take the mask off.
Yeah. And so I think one thing I'm super passionate about is, we lived a life for so long where we listened to the advice of date every week, go on dates every single week, go to a conference every year together, read books together, quote scriptures together, confess every day, pray together, and all of that
all those are good.
Played a part in our life. But then there came this raw, real moments that happened, the shit show.
Yeah.
And hello, a date's not going to cure that. Quoting 100 scriptures aren't.
No.
Going to a conference isn't going to cure it. Getting real with each other. And I think that's when we created this step of investing into ourselves and allowing new information to come into our life.
Opening up your mind to go, what else is out there that obviously what I've been doing isn't working.
Yeah.
If you've been doing the same thing and realize that's not working, change that up. Because it's ridiculous the patterns that we had been through for, a decade, almost a decade of our marriage. At that point, what had been 8 years almost, 7 to 8 years of our marriage, and just realizing that, wow, we need new information, and our mindsets are so far off that we have to shift and change those mindsets. And we were talking about this before we went on camera, that we're not afraid of the dark places anymore, because what we've realized is that out of the dark places, that out of the darkness, there's a gift. So if you're in a dark place, do not discount that. Don't just wait like, I can't wait to get out of it. I trust me, I understand those thoughts. I understand those feelings. But know this, that while you're in that dark place, there's a gift for you there, that you can draw out that gift and find out what it is. While you are there, why am I here? And what am I here to learn? And what do I need to take from this? Because I'm here. I can't change that. I'm right here in the middle of this valley, in this dark place. But what gift, what am I supposed to learn here?
Right.
And so know that there is a gift in every dark moment that you encounter, that you face, that there is a win that you can bring out of that.
Yeah, so let that be your anchor. Really embrace those hard, dark, painful times. And no matter, like, as much as I wanted, and I did, I was like angry, and I was bitter, and I was hostile. Absolutely. And I was very hurt. And then on the flip side, for me, I was blaming myself. I felt, my God, I was full of so much guilt. And regardless of just what was happening, the both of us had to look at each other. And I think that's huge, is just pause, take a time out, and look at each other and say, where are we going to go from here? And really make a decision, make a solid decision that you choose to be your anchor. And in that moment, it was, Ryan, I choose to walk this out with you. And what is really crazy is, like, when we lost Annabelle, little did we know the hardship that was going to follow that. Once all of this started to unravel, that really set us up to really be present in all these moments. Because when we lost her, we went right to a man-made lake here locally, and we sat down on a bench, and we looked at each other, and we said, there is nothing we can do to change our situation. We cannot bring Annabelle back.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah, and where do we go from here? We chose in that moment, this is only going to make us stronger, and somehow, some way, we will get through this. And so from that moment, it taught us, where does our anchor lie? And not only does it lie within God, but then also within each other, and drawing from a strength much greater than ours. And so there is a strength out there. There's tons of resources out there. And I think that's the main thing that we want to share is, you're your biggest investment. I'm my biggest investment. He's his biggest investment. Find new information. Find a safe place to share. Grab hold of whatever is around you. My friends, there is endless resources out there. I don't care if you come from the smallest town, the biggest city. I don't care if you have 0 friends or you have hundreds of friends. Find something somewhere. Something.
No excuses.
There's just no excuses, right?
Exactly.
To find help. And that's it. Yeah. No more excuses. We could come up with countless excuses. And you have to make that decision. I'm going to take ownership and full responsibility with where I'm at. And from this point on, we're going to just go ahead and move forward. And have the end game in mind. We talked about that, your anchor. And then choose every single day to become a whole person. And this takes so much practice. So give yourself a lot of room to make mistakes, because God only knows we're going to make mistakes for a whole lifetime.
It's the only way you get better.
But yeah, now that we have identified, okay, we have a struggle. And what did you say it's called? Like
the vice.
The vice.
Yep.
So we all have a vice to carry, and we have to choose every day where we're going to stand within that. And I loved what you said, like, it's okay to have a bad day.
Right.
And
absolutely. You're going to have them. You're going to have bad days, and know to press into that. Press into those days that are painful and that hurt and that just flat out suck. But you're going to get through it. And again,
all of this,
there's always a gift.
There's always a gift, and this all taught us that it's okay to not be okay, and it's made room for others to not be okay in our world now.
Yeah,
too.
100%.
We've made some really great, awesome new friendships, and we've become stronger. And it doesn't mean that our problems have gone away.
No.
Just a couple months ago, we had to fight again for our marriage and for where we stood. And it's the good fight of faith, right? But it takes work.
It takes a lot of work
to get there.
It's not just an easy peasy, say a couple incantations and poof, it'll be all better. Like, it takes, it's faith and it is work. The Bible says that faith without works is dead. And so a lot of people just they
forget the works.
faith. And it's like, hey, let's don't be stupid. Like, there is work to be done here.
Don't be
you've
stupid.
Got to work
don't
your
be
ass
lazy.
Off. Yeah, don't be a lazy ass. That's I had to realize that's a whole nother topic for another one. The FLB, the fat lazy bastard that lives on the inside of us, and so you can't allow those things to dictate who you're going to be and what you're going to accomplish. So
right. Awesome. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed our video. Stay tuned for more. You can find us on our website and subscribe. We'd love for you to comment, share, please engage, and let us know how you enjoyed it. What did you learn? What are you and your spouse, or what are you doing from this point forward to become a better version of you and to really dig deep within and become real in your life, so you can become real with not only yourself but others around you. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
And remember, you're never alone.